Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Melissa Noel. I am the founder of Melanin Media and contributing news and politics editor at Essence Magazine. This afternoon, I have the absolute pleasure of being joined by Alliah Agostini, who is a phenomenal children's book author. I had the opportunity to meet and connect with you about a year ago when I learned about your book, Big Tune, which is literally a family favorite of mine. And then, of course, the Juneteenth cookbook. So, welcome, Alliah, and thank you so much for joining us for this year's Authors Connect cultural reading program with Tropicalfete Inc.
Thank you so much for having me, Melissa. It's a pleasure to speak to you again. And I'm so glad to hear that Big Tune's a family favorite. That warms my heart whenever I hear it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the little things in there that we're gonna get into, but it's the little things that you're like, this sounds like my family party right here. So happy Caribbean American Heritage Month.
Yes, thank you. Same to you.
Thank you. Happy belated Juneteenth.
That too, right? That's all the things right now.
All the things.
Juneteenth, Caribbean Heritage.
Right? Black Music Month, all the things. And you are a phenomenal author that is literally bringing to life stories about us, our people, our stories, our traditions, our way. And these are the kinds of books that I think so many of us, and myself included, had hoped for when we were growing up. So now we get to share with our children, our nieces, our nephews, godchildren, and just children in our communities. And I think I am really excited for the Tropicalfete Inc. audience to learn more about you and what got you into this. So I know that you actually worked as a marketing professional for many years before you got into children's literature. Tell me what inspired you to literally go into children's literature, as I understand that was your first love. You went into marketing, but then you were like, okay, I got to get back to this and tell these stories.
Yeah, certainly. So an interesting story. I'm a mom. I'm a mom of two kids, and that's really kind of what brought me back to KidLit. So my background is in marketing, but actually before I was even a marketer, I was in publishing, but on the other side of things, and I worked for Time Inc. And I knew I always loved magazines. I loved pictures and words together. And I guess I didn't realize that I was kind of planning out my future career in some way when I started there. But it was when my kids were born that I was reintroduced to the books that I love so much. And also the fact that there were more books that actually reflected our lives. But then I also realized that a lot of these books weren't even necessarily written by people of color, and that there were so many stories that still needed to be told. So just like you were saying about, Big Tune kind of reflecting a little bit of, your heritage and what you would have loved to see when you were a kid. I didn't see these books either, and I didn't see them for my kids. And I was like, I want to make sure that there's something that specifically speaks to, their Caribbean American heritage too, because my husband's Jamaican, and I'm Guyanese and also African American too. So I was like, I want to make sure that there are books that reflect our stories. And as a marketer, I look for white space opportunities, right? So I look at things kind of strategically. I'm like, what am I not seeing in the market? And what do I think would really bring people joy? And so I kind of look at all those things together. And also I'm, a mom too, I'm also buying books. So I think about like, what would I enjoy? What would others enjoy? What would families truly benefit from? And that's kind of how I wound up figuring. I was like, okay, if I don't see what I want, maybe I have to make it myself.
Maybe you have to make it yourself, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I know. And I thank you for sharing that. And I wanted to start with that so people just get a little bit more of a sense of who you are, what you do, a little bit about your family. And then as you shared your Guyanese and your African American, you have a really unique perspective. Your husband's Jamaican and you're a mom of two beautiful children. So all those things play into this. And so your debut book, which fiction book, Big Tune, The Rise of the Dancehall Prince, celebrates community, Caribbean culture, and Black boy joy all in one. And so talk to me a little bit about what inspired Big Tune, because as I was reading that, as I've read that story, and it's like I told you, has become a family favorite. You see just the little things, whether it's, ting, there, patties, little curry for the party, the family party. You're hearing the music. You're just immersed in things that are so a part of Caribbean culture and so quintessential that you're like, yes, we all had those things. Even if it was a children's birthday, it really was for the adults. So it was a really big line, big things. So
We know it.
So, what was it that made you say this has to be my debut book, and why did you tap into that story specifically? And bringing us all those things married together like that, because it was really beautifully done.
Okay, I appreciate it because all the intentionality was definitely there. Like I was saying, I was, we'd read books before, and I'd see some of them. I'm like, there's certain details that are missing, and I realized that the more specific you can be, the more you can draw people in. And so with Big Tune, so of course it's interesting. I started writing really seriously during the pandemic. So obviously these big parties. Well, I mean, some people were having them, but we were not. Okay.
We were adherent to the protocols. Okay,
we were adhering to the rules. We were not indeed having these parties. And I'd actually written another book that was kind of, inspired by both my kids, and it was about dancing. And there was something about it that wasn't sticking, that wasn't really landing. And I was talking to a couple of my critique partners because I used to meet with a group and we talk about writing and share ideas. And one of my critique partners was like, what if the kid was too shy to dance? And I was like, oh, that brought me down another trail. And my husband, who I mentioned is Jamaican, he's Jamaican. He was born in Brooklyn in East New York. He always used to talk about the family parties that his family would have, and the fact that he was kind of like a little bit more shy, but he would like hang in the back, and then he would collect the bottles and the cans from the party, and then his mom let him, take them to the store, and he would return them because the bottle returned there, return them for the money, and he would be able to use it for whatever. But the thing is, he's like the best dancer, but he wouldn't dance at the parties, and in fact, I don't even think some of his family realized that he could dance until our wedding. I mean, when I was introduced to him, he was introduced to me as like, oh, LeVar, and he's a great dancer. So he was dancing at college parties and everything else. But I was like, this is really something. I'm like, he would talk about this a lot. And I was like, there's really a nugget there. And I was like, this is something that I want to preserve because, like I said, like my family is also, I'm Guyanese and I'm African-American, and we all have our different types of like parties that we relate to. We might have a slightly different, variation. Like we have a lot more like roti and curry or whatever, at our, our Caribbean, our Guyanese parties. Like I go up to Toronto to see more of my cousins, or to Maryland where a lot of my family was. And my dad was the one who came over to the States from Guyana. And I'd always see him just smile so much more brightly, when he was with his family, like really in the comfort of home, especially growing up in a place like Buffalo, where, there weren't a lot of Caribbean people around. Yeah. And it's just something about, these family gatherings that I was like, there's really a nugget there. So I started kind of with this nugget of insight from like my husband being kind of like a shy kid that was, had a bigger plan in mind. He was, collecting these bottles and cans or whatever, but he was saving up for something. And I wanted to really show kind of the love that this kid, in this case, we fictionalized it, or I fictionalized it, and his name is Shane, which is actually kind of my husband's house name, but we spelled it differently for here.
I see, and that too, right? Your house name versus your government name that you use when you go out and about and everything like that. Just so
yes,
so great. Okay,
there's so very specific things, and I was like, I want to make this a story about like a shy kid with like a really big heart, and he's just having a good time, and his family, it's like there's like very light drama. I was like, I don't need this to be too heavy. I was like, I have a son. I have a husband and a dad, and they are, they have had Black joy moments in their life. And I was like, it doesn't all need to be about struggle and strife. And I just wanted to be a story about a kid with a big heart, that is multidimensional, that's multi-layered. And even there's intentionality in some of the illustrations too. I was like, yeah, he can dance, but you know what? If you look, you'll see he's got 100 on his test. If you look closely at the spread of his room, like he's not good at making his bed, but he does get good grades.
He knows to pay attention to his school books.
Exactly, right? I was like, we're gonna put all these things, even in the back of the book, you can see some of the things that speak out. It's like kind of the Easter eggs of the book. Like here, like he's good at music, he likes basketball, he's a well-rounded kid. So it's just really important to me because we talk about representation mattering all the time, and I want to make sure that people, of course, kids see themselves in Shane, but I also want to make sure that other people see, like, Black children as children in these books. Like, for me, a lot of why I write is about kind of just making sure we give Black kids the privilege of childhood.
Yeah.
Um, yes.
That
Yeah.
ability to just be and to enjoy
Yes.
childhood and just have a good time as
Yeah.
well.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, I love that. What would you say was your favorite part of creating Big Tune, and what ended up being like that part of the story that you always think about that really speaks to that representation of not only Caribbean culture but childhood?
Yeah, yeah. Oh my goodness. I think there's so many notions of it. I think it's kind of like those. I like when Shane has the epiphany that he can make a difference, because there's a moment in the book where his family's bummed because their party is going to be canceled because the speaker is blown, and Shane realizes that he's been doing something, he's been saving up money, and he knows where he can find the answer right away.
Yeah.
And it's fun seeing these light bulb moments when kids can save the day.
Yeah.
And I really love that, because it's kind of the crux of what kind of solves the problem in the story. But even just seeing my own children and seeing those moments when they have that realization that, like, kids can do big things too. I think that's like really really kind of like a big one for me. But yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I thank you for bringing that up, right? Because it's so encouraging, right, for children to know like you can do big things, you can be a part of the solution. You can, you can be a part of something that makes a difference.
Mhm.
And sometimes it can be really hard. We're getting all these different messages coming from so many different places. So to have that reinforcement in a really fun way is always really great. And then from a Caribbean cultural standpoint, what did you enjoy most about getting to put those little nuances, those little touches in there? Talk to us a little about that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like, for instance, here's one spread. It shows Shane's parents dancing in the living room. I was like, there must be a picture of Jamaica on the wall. I was like, there's got to be a flag, like a wooden carving, something. I was
Absolutely,
like,
because if you don't have it, like, are you real? Like, what's
yeah,
happening? It has
like,
to be there.
like exactly. Like, in our house, we used to have like the velvet scroll with the outline of Guyana on it.
Yes, everybody had that, and you could see all the little places,
Like,
whether it was the bauxite or
yeah,
the sugar, or and it has the black
yeah.
velvet.
At
Yes,
the velvet, like, that's very specific. You know what I mean? It's like those little things. And also, like, Shane's dad's shoes, like, he's got the quintessential Caribbean dad sandals. You know what I mean? It's like little things like that. I was like, we need to make sure that people know and see. And then this one is my favorite. So even though the family looks sad, they've got some amazing food on the table.
yeah,
So for me, like, I love when I open this page and I'm reading the book to kids, and they're like, wait a minute, like, there's plantain on the table. There's ting right there. There's rice and peas. Like, they're eating oxtail. It's so fun because they see that connectivity. They're like, wait a minute, this has been on my table, or this is what I have when I go to my granny's house, or whatever.
yeah.
And so it's just like all these small moments that made it, I think, like, really special. And I love when people can, like, open it and call back, and then it brings them so much joy. And the book itself is set in the 90s. So of course, certain things like, the end papers that are cassette tapes, the kids are like, are those CDs? What are those things again? But the parents are like, let me tell you about this.
Yeah,
Let me
let me take you back for a minute.
Yes. I was like, let me take you back to when phones had cords, let me take you back to, like, I was like, even their clothes, we had a great time with that. Like, I was like, let me make sure mommy looks fly. Like,
Yeah.
she can't be looking basic. She's got to be fly.
I love that. I love that. I want to just say good afternoon to our audience, wherever you are joining us from this on this beautiful Sunday. Thank you so much for joining Authors Connecting, the Cultural Reading Program, Tropicalfete Inc.'s program in celebration of Caribbean American Heritage Month. I am here with the amazing author Alliah Agostini, who is chatting with me about her book Big Tune, and then we're also going to get into the Juneteenth cookbook. So feel free to drop in the chat where you are joining us from, where you're viewing from, and how you are enjoying the conversation with us today. She's already dropped some really great gems, as well as we've gotten to hear why and how intentional, Alliah, you were in creating the book and ensuring the illustrations really and truly showed significant representation, and also that children really can, play a part in having impact and making a difference, and that they really should just have that opportunity to be children and celebrate their culture at the same time, which I think is really fantastic and why I love this book. So I want to, don't be shy, folks in the audience. If you're watching, please let us know where you are tuning in from. And if you have any questions for Alliah, please drop those in the chat so that we can ask those at the end of the conversation. And so Big Tune is one, and that was a debut fictional book. It has been doing really well. I've been seeing you traveling and doing a lot of workshops and book signings with kids, and I think that has been fantastic. Um, so then you were like, okay, I'm going to keep this going. The Juneteenth Cookbook
Yeah.
is, another book that is children's literature that we really got to see, present another side of history and culture, and really take children into a really important story with a picture book. So talk to me a little bit about, I know that you have a unique family history when it comes to Juneteenth, and the side of your family being in from Buffalo, New York. So I wanted to know a little. I wanted you to share with our audience just a little bit about your unique family history and ties to Juneteenth, and how, like, doing this story was like an ode to your family.
Yeah, no, for sure. So June, of course, is a big month for me, because of both of my cultural identities. But my debut book was actually the Juneteenth story. I'm like, this is behind me this way. Which was nonfiction, and it was a book about Juneteenth and its origins. And it was really important to me to write this book because I grew up in Buffalo, New York, which is not in Texas, which most people know is where Juneteenth got started, but has actually been celebrating Juneteenth since 1976. So my grandfather was part of the initial founding committee for Juneteenth Buffalo, and he was a member of the executive committee probably up until maybe about a year ago or so. And he's now like more of a emeritus status, but he's still involved. And I grew up celebrating Juneteenth basically my whole life. So when Juneteenth became a national holiday, we wanted to create a book that would teach people about Juneteenth. And the book itself did really well. I think a lot of people liked it as a resource for learning about the holiday. But we wanted to take it to another level and really bring families into a more interactive way to learn about the holiday. And so we developed the Juneteenth Cookbook, which you see over here above me. So the Juneteenth Cookbook, actually my family, or a rendition of my family, is featured on the cover. So it's a little version of me with my grandparents, and there's even a painting in the upper corner of my great grandmother. And we're making some foods that are connected to Juneteenth traditions, and also just Black culinary culture in general. Yeah. So the book itself is a cookbook, so it has it has about 18 different recipes in it, but it also it's like a cookbook plus. So it has activities like crafts that kind of speak to ways that you can celebrate the holidays. So how to make your own gear, like your t-shirts, how to make a little bit of like an African medallion necklace, again, bringing it back to the 90s. And even field trips and other games that kids can play to learn about the holiday, and also just to celebrate in general. So it's really kind of like a 360-degree celebratory book.
Yeah, and I think that's what I love about it, is that you not only get to learn about the holiday, which actually became a federal holiday in 2021. So it's still pretty new in terms of being celebrated on a federal level, but knowing stories of ones like your family, knowing that you've been celebrating it your entire life, and knowing how long it's been celebrated in Texas, where it actually began. How now do you, because you grew up and it was something that you celebrated every year, how do you now, and now you have these books, you have the Juneteenth Cookbook, but then you also have the Juneteenth story celebrating the end of slavery in the United States. How does that make you feel in terms of the pride that you have, knowing your grandfather's role in things, and then now that you have these books to to be able to help children learn about it in really, and just whole families in really unique ways.
I mean, it's mind blowing. I could have never predicted this turn, and I'm so grateful for it. Especially because my grandfather, he's 93 years old right now. So I still
Wow.
remember when I found out about the opportunity to even write the Juneteenth story alone, he was like, "Are you going to write that Juneteenth book? You're going to write the Juneteenth book?" I was like, "You know what? I'm going to do it." And so I have really been dumbfounded by the reception to the book. Even from, I mean, it's gotten some incredible press. And I mean, thank you, of course, for elevating it too.
Or
That, but what I hear anecdotally from people like, just friends of mine, and families that I've never met before, I started writing, just people, parents that are learning from the book, the kids that are learning from the book. I mean, even I went to a school visit recently, and now it's kind of cool when kids are like, "Oh, I've actually read your books already." I'm like, "You've already read them, and you don't know me." But obviously, people that aren't, that don't know me are reading my books too. And this is not the most diverse district, but one little boy knew all the answers to the questions, and I was like, I almost forgot that he was the one that already had the book, and I
at
was
the
like,
book.
"Yeah, you know this history, and you read the book, and you received it." And I mean, it's this amazing kind of what it took, unfortunately, for it to finally become a federal holiday. I mean, obviously there have been people like Dr. Oprah Lee and um, Sheila Jackson Lee, a lot of people that have been pushing to make Juneteenth a holiday, a national
Yeah.
holiday, for a very long time, and it has been a state holiday in Texas since the late 70s, or around 1980. But it's just so fulfilling now to see, the reception of these books, and also like kind of the broader body of work around Juneteenth that now exists. There were a few, great picture books about Juneteenth, before it became a holiday, but it's just like there's no excuse to not know about it at this point. um,
Indeed.
and of course, there's people that are pushing it back against that, which is another story altogether. But I'm just so grateful to be able to, you know, elevate our culture in a way that just kind of helps kids see themselves reflected in books, and then also kind of shares a little bit with others.
Yeah, and to your point there, right? Even though there is that pushback, we know that the importance of this is way greater, and the
Yeah.
importance of being able to it always starts at home, and it starts when you're young. So it's really important to have these kind of books that our children and families can tap into to be able to know the stories, to celebrate, and to know that these traditions, that this history is important, that we all know. And as you said, you know, we're in this age of social media. There's no excuse not to know now, right? There's so many resources out there, including these books,
Mhm.
that you can take advantage of. So I think it's important to just kind of continue. And we're grateful to have books like yours as reference points for our families for sure. I'd love to know from the cookbook, you mentioned a little bit about some of the recipes and the activities that can be done. Share with us, two of the recipes that really kind of like are hit a home run when you're like chatting about this book with children, and how those really speak to amazing African American traditions that we should all know and be aware of, and try to and maybe we can try these recipes ourselves as well.
Yeah, for sure. So a couple that come to mind, and there's so many great recipes in the book, so I definitely encourage people. I mean, it's a lot of libraries too, so you don't even necessarily have to buy it. You can check it out. So one, of course, is my grandmother's potato salad recipe is actually in the book.
Oh
Um,
yes, potato
yeah. So
salad.
okay, so we know that potato salad is not something that people take lightly. Like it's a very treasured part of the cookout experience. And in fact,
Indeed.
yeah, it's for April Fool's Day. I told people that I put raisins in the potato salad recipe,
They
which is,
probably were like,
they were like,
"Ma'am, no, you got to go because that's
exactly,
just you can't do that. That's against the law."
exactly. No, so there are no raisins in the potato. In fact, like the book actually says, never ever put raisins in potato salad. But this is, a little piece of our family culture, and history that I wanted to share. But it's kind of like the cornerstone of every single cookout meal. So I wanted to
Absolutely.
shout that one out. But also another one, which is a really simple recipe that anybody can do at home, probably even without, actually looking at the rest of the book itself. But we have a watermelon snow cup recipe. Now, red foods are traditionally associated with Juneteenth. And what this does is it just instructs you to simply, slice watermelon, make sure it's easy to hold, slice watermelon and put it on like a baking tray lined with plastic and stick it in your freezer. Once the watermelon is frozen, you can take something as simple as like a box cheese grater or grater with a really fine hole. And you can just grate the watermelon itself. And it's like a really good frosty treat. And then it also complements well with tahine, like the chili lime seasoning. Or lime. And the reason why we included tahine was because, well, first of all, why we made this recipe in general, and first of all, because it's delicious, obviously. Watermelon is actually a food that comes from Africa. I mean, so many people are like, I know people that are like, I don't eat watermelon in mixed company just because of some of the pejorative narratives around watermelon in the Black community. But I'm like, no, everybody loves watermelon. This is actually a food that came from Africa. This is like one of the things that came over, unfortunately, during the slave trade as well. But it's really refreshing and it's healthy. But also the tahine kind of is a representation for a flavor that comes from Mexico. And a lot of people don't realize that emancipation happened earlier in Mexico. There was slavery in Mexico. And there were enslaved Texans who actually went south to get their freedom. So many people think about trying to follow like drinking gourd and going north to Canada, but there are actually people who went south, and there are communities, of people that are descended from formerly enslaved Africans that are in Mexico too. So that was just one of the ways that we tried to connect some of Juneteenth traditions with a little bit of information about our culinary heritage, as well as the fact that they might not have known about emancipation.
And this is exactly why I asked that question, right? Because not only recipes hold so much history, recipes hold so much tradition, and they also really just like they kind of put you in a moment in time and help you to appreciate a lot of the things we have now. So I really thank you for that. And I know I might be going out on a limb here, but I think maybe we should try to have some kind of cooking demo with you with some of these recipes. I don't know, summertime, sometime, because these sound really great. And I think what better way to learn about some of these historic culinary traditions than being able to, do it over a really great food demo, learn the history, eat the food, and then be in community with a lot of great people. So I'm just putting it out there. Maybe
and also, I do also have to shout a couple of people out for the books too. So both of my books, the Juneteenth books, were illustrated by Sawyer Cloud, who's an amazing illustrator. But for the cookbook, I also worked with the chef because it's like I know what my strengths are. I was like, I'm a great eater, but I was like, I can't necessarily like tell you exactly what needs to go in everything. So I worked with Chef Taffy Elrod, who's been a chef for over 20 years, and she's a culinary educator, a wonderful person. And she made sure that like every single recipe was like literally chef's kiss. So I was like, I need to make sure that is perfectly clear.
I know. And thank you for that. So then that just sounds like to me that we need to make sure we have the stuff there, there so we can have the cooking, the history, all the things. So I'm just throwing that out there, Tropicalfete Inc., that maybe there's a cooking demo in our future. And like you said, I know my strengths and I'll just be there to eat and chat.
Exactly. Right.
So last couple of questions here for you. I just have two more. We've been having so much fun. I think we have covered so much in this conversation. I'm having a great time. And I really hope we get to do this cooking demo. Seriously, please, summertime. Summer is here. What impacts, you talked a little bit about just being excited to hear children, know the history, know the answers to things, or to get excited when they're seeing rice and peas and plantain and things on the illustrated on the pages of your books. What impact do you hope, children and, adults, what do you hope they take away from your books? Because they have this really great theme where we're getting a great story, we're getting a great children's lit, but we're also getting a lesson, and representation at the same time. So what do you hope as the author of these great books that, people are taking away from them.
Oh goodness, Blackness is joy. You know what I mean? Like I really, I really want them to take away kind of just, of course, the fact that, you know, there we do have like a very interesting history for so many different reasons, but like we're so much more than what has been done to us. Like we're, you know, the general theme for my books is really just joy and community. And the fact that, you know, we are people, we are humans, we have similarities, you know, to the rest of the world, but we also have our differences. But I really just want people to, you know, be able to see the joy of Blackness, and also to see like the joy and the purity of our children. You know, I think one of the reasons, like the really deep, like underlying reason about why I, you know, write books for kids that, you know, feature kids, Black kids doing all kinds of fun things. And I have a lot more fiction coming up that I think will showcase this even more, was that I want people to see like all the nuances of our children, so that they too, you know, almost like as a safety protection measure. So they don't see them, our kids, as a threat. So they see our kids as the very children that they are.
Yep.
So that's, you know, it's really about the joy and the sanctity of Black childhood, that I really want people to take away.
Yeah, I think that is so powerful. And I don't take that lightly. And I think that it sometimes, you know, just I enjoy these books with my godchildren, with my younger cousins. And sometimes it's easy to just say like, oh, well, we're just having a good time with this book. But the books like this really do help to change the narrative. And books like this really do help our children to see themselves as limitless, you know? And I think more than anything, that is so powerful and so important. So we thank you for that. And of course, I want to know, like, and I'm sure our audience wants to know, how do we, if they want to purchase your books, where can we go? Because we know that there are so many great ones. We talked about 3 today, but there's others too. So let us know where we can find the books. And then I would love for you to just chat about some of the other books. I know you have a book about the queen of media, of course, Oprah, as well. So, yes.
Yeah, no. So you can find my books basically wherever books are sold. If you buy them online, if you buy them in store, even if they're not on shelf, you can oftentimes request them too from your local bookseller. And they're also at Barnes and Noble too. I know, especially the Juneteenth books, and like the books that I have coming up. I have. It's going to be a busy year.
Ooh, love to hear that.
It's going to be a busy year. So I have a couple coming out in September. And actually, I did want to show you. I'm like, let me make sure I'm covering myself. Pardon my reach. So the book that you mentioned about the Queen of Media is Oprah Winfrey, A Little Golden Book Biography, which came out in November. So it was such a privilege to be able to write an iconic, a book about an icon from like an iconic brand. It just meant a lot to me. And also, Oprah Daily featured the Cookbook recently, so that was like a huge moment.
Congratulations!
Thank you. That was a huge moment. I was like, maybe she's on the book. I don't know. But then I have, as I mentioned, some more fiction coming out. So between September and next May, I have about 6 books that'll be dropping.
Oh, wow. Okay, so we're all going to be busy because we have 6 books to buy. Okay, got it.
Yeah, exactly. So 3 of them are picture books, and then 3 of them are easy readers. So which are kind of like picture books, but they're like more simplified text for kids that are developing their reading skills. So I just got my advanced copy for the one that's coming out in September. Great Idea, Malia. And it's about a little girl and her mom gets a big new job, and Malia has lots of great ideas, and her idea is to help her mother with her job, which is not really the best idea. So you know, it'll be a good time, but that one's coming out in September. So anyways, lots of books on the horizon. You can certainly find them all just by searching my name. But yeah, the bookstore community has been really supportive of my books, and I'm so grateful for it. And I love to hear when they recommend it, as well as, you know, librarians too. I can't say enough about them. They're really on kind of like the front lines of making sure that our representative books are still there. And so I'm
Yeah, especially in this climate that we're in right now, when we are seeing so many incredible and necessary books by Black authors being restricted or banned in general, simply for representing us. So thank you for literally doing God's work, and it's ensuring that we continue to see stories like this. And you just gave me an idea. Not only am I hoping Tropical Fete for this cooking demo, but to you have these other great books coming out. Maybe there's a cooking demo slash book release kind of thing that we can do, because this is incredible. I'm excited. I'd love to see you in person.
oh, same. I know. Yeah,
I'd
same.
love to eat the food in person and chat about the books with some amazing young people present who can,
Yeah.
chat with you directly. So I would love to just say thank you again, Alliah, for joining us this afternoon for this amazing Tropical Fete Authors Connecting Cultural Reading Program. This is my third year doing the program. I love it so much. So this is why I'm back again. And I'm so glad that you joined us today to share a little bit more about Big Tune, the Juneteenth Cookbook, and all of the other amazing children's literature that you write. We thank you. We honor you this Caribbean American Heritage Month, and we can't wait to see you again.
Yes, likewise. Thank you so much for thinking of me, for asking such wonderful questions. I love the conversation. So thank you again, Tropical Fete, for all that you're doing to elevate Caribbean authors too. I appreciate it. Yeah.
All right, from one Guyanese girl to another. This was
Exactly right.
amazing. Yes, yes, yes. This was amazing. Thank you, thank you. Thank you to our amazing audience for joining us this Sunday afternoon. Whether you got to catch this live or you'll be watching the replay and enjoying it as much as we did, thank you for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your Caribbean American Heritage Month, and we'll see you soon.
All right, see you. Thank you.